Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about the DC Council, Mayor Bowser, and public safety, where the council keeps handing the mayor defeats, and the mayor is responding with some pretty choice words about soft-on-crime politicians. We're talking about the freeze for now on the White House Ballroom, and a slew of DC chefs are on the James Beard list. Plus, in a members-only fourth segment, it's back to the safety of the local water supply, only this time the question is how Virginia's data center boom is affecting it. I'm here with the 51st's Martin Austermuhle and CityCast's Annie Reese. Today is Friday, April 3rd. I'm Michael Schaefer. Here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Martin, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Annie. Good to see you.
Hello. Great to see you as always. Hi, Martin.
Hello.
So, Martin, you were down at the Wilson Building a bunch this week. And as much as I would like to talk to you about the ballot initiative to ban foie gras in D.C., I think there's probably more pressing things. The mayor on Wednesday night took to WTOP to blast the council as soft on crime. It was pretty harsh stuff. Why is she so mad at them? What have they done to deserve this?
So what happened is that she had a bad week in the council. Basically, there was two big things that happened that were kind of against her interests. The first was that the council overrode her veto of a bill that would require DC officers to essentially take more steps to collect the names and information of federal agents that are patrolling with DC cops. This is something that the council says is just a basic step towards transparency. She says it's a logistical headache and she doesn't want it to happen. The council disagreed and they overrode her.
Unanimously,
exactly, which hasn't happened in quite a while. Now, the other thing that happened that also got under her skin was this youth curfew, this expanded youth curfew that sets these zones across the city that started 8 p.m. This has been in place since last summer. I mean, the debate has stretched out over the last year. It was put in place over the summer, then it was extended into kind of the winter and then early spring months. But this law that allows these expanded curfew zones is going to lapse in the middle of April. So the Bowser administration and some of our allies are saying we need to keep it going through the summer because, people are going to start going out. It's beautiful weather. We're going to have more of these teen takeovers down at Navy Yard and the Wharf and all these other places.
But can you just explain so people know, what is a teen takeover?
I mean, a teen takeover, if you take the phrase, the kind of narrative adopted by the police and by the mayor, it's just that. It's like large groups of teenagers kind of running wild in specific neighborhoods in town. Most of it, Navy Yard, for some reason.
Like hundreds.
Yeah, we're talking hundreds of kids. And, Navy Yard has become like a favorite location for them. It's metro accessible. They're transit friendly. So, they take over places that are transit accessible. But yeah, we're talking about lots of kids in one place at one time. It's gotten as bad as them kind of going up and down the wharf, bothering people who are trying to have a quiet meal or just a drink or just hang out and have a nice night. And the issue is also that the police say that this is all organized or facilitated by social media. People, put together these flyers, they blast them around on TikTok, and then suddenly hundreds of kids take the metro and show up in one place at one time and cause havoc.
So what's wrong with the curfews in the eyes of the people who've vexed Mayor Bowser?
Well, and yeah, the people vexing the mayor at this point is a majority of the council, and their argument has been since last year. They've said, listen, we'll approve this new expanded teen curfew, which again starts at 8 o'clock versus 11 o'clock, which is the normal curfew. But we'll approve this for now as a short-term tool because we recognize there might be a problem. But as we give you this short-term tool to address the problem for the next couple of months, what we want you to do is offer lots more programming, kind of make sure that kids have job opportunities, all the sort of stuff that you'll usually hear as kind of like the root causes of these problems. Now, again, this has been going on this debate has been happening for about a year, and I think members of the council and kind of progressive do-gooders think that the city just has not done that sort of heavier lifting on the root causes and is instead just going to keep relying on this emergency curfew and basically is going to keep asking for it to be extended some more and not do anything else.
So does anybody really like, look at, and I say this without judgment because I was a knucklehead when I was a teenager, as I assume you guys were too.
You always
Um,
talk about your knucklehead years, and I wish I could like see it. Anyway,
no, I mean, I don't think I was like particularly anything. I just think most teenagers are freaking knuckleheads
yeah.
and, and do dumb stuff. So does anybody actually think that like if the mayor organized like movie nights or I don't know what like activities that this would actually keep kids from uh doing the thing they want to do, which is like being away from the grown-ups or being away from the authority figures?
I mean, I don't want to question people's sincerity. I think they honestly think that's true. I think there's also a lot of people who understandably say there's some kids that are not going to go to a rec center and watch a movie or jump on a bouncy castle or do whatever other activity the government is organizing for you. Because like government activities are only so cool for so many people at specific times. And like, you're a 15 or 16-year-old, the idea of going to a rec center or going to Navy Yard and just like meeting up with a ton of people and seeing what happens. I mean, look, I can see kids going towards the latter instead of the former.
So the council basically didn't take action to extend this curfew again, which means it will lapse until they have a chance to take action. That period of lapse includes spring break.
It does. So yeah, it lapses April 15th, which is in the middle of the week of DCPS spring break. So again, there's now concern that first weekend after the lapse, so I think it's like April 17th or something like that you may have more of these teen takeovers. Kids may decide, listen, there's no consequences, so we're definitely going to go out now, and the weather's going to be great, so it's going to be like it's our time to do our thing.
Well, and this whole thing just feels so like reactive at this point, right? Like these teen takeovers have been happening for like well over a year, and it feels like they happen, and then there's like an extension of curfews. Like everything is just like there's a lot of finger pointing, and there's not really a lot of consistency in policy, and it feels like that may be just what it's about to happen again, right? Like it's going to happen during spring break, and then it's like, oh shit, gotta do this now. It's an emergency again.
And the curfews, obviously, as Bowser's critics will point out, that we have curfews right now, and they manifestly are not stopping the stuff. She would, I guess, respond by saying it could be worse, and maybe it will be. But what I have to say is, I just find the politics around this so weird, because, like, I don't think many people in Washington want to see like local teens locked up en masse for being knuckleheads, right? But I also think a lot of people find, that idea of, you run a restaurant, profit margins are small, and all of a sudden you've got like the large groups of people doing things that are disturbing and irritating and maybe feel threatening to some of your clients. And they want someone like in authority to say like, get out of here, kids. It's like, beat it, go home, whatever. And the lack of sort of starting with empathy for that point of view, I find very strange. That look, I'm not a criminologist, and I don't know that curfews are the best way to enforce it or anything like that. But like, you kind of start by saying like, yeah, I see you. This sucks. We got to do something here. One of there was a quote in one of the news reports about the vote from the head of a nonprofit that works with youth, where he said, these curfews are just like calamine lotion on a rash, which is to say that it's not getting rid of the poison ivy that caused the rash. True. But like when you have a rash, it's good. You still want to have the calamine lotion.
Yeah. And the mayor had a very similar quote in a letter that she sent to the council this week. She essentially said something to the effect of, yes, the curfew may just be a Band-Aid, but there's still a wound, and you don't just take the Band-Aid off the wound while it's still there and fresh. I think there's that point. I mean, speaking of the politics have also shifted in this really interesting way. Last year, when this first came up in the council for the summer, it was, to my knowledge, from my memory, it was a unanimous vote. So the council approved it without much debate. And a bunch of council members who are now against extended it back then were very conservative about it. We're saying, listen, back when I was a kid, we had a streetlight rule. Like the minute the streetlights come on, you're home. And if you're not home, there's consequences at home. So they adopted the stern elected official voice But now it's much more, listen, these kids need activities. This is their way of speaking out about like the injustices that they face. And part of that could be true. But at the same time, I agree with you. It's interesting that the council is just, they're kind of looking away, even though with their own kids, they would never tell their kids, go out and hang out at Navy Yard with 200 of your friends at like 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday.
We're in the middle of a mayor's race. Where are the candidates on this? Well,
again, Janice Lewis-George is probably one of the most consistent critics of the curfew as a tool, and she voted against it being extended the last time the council brought it up, which was in November. So she voted against it then. She spoke against it. She was going to vote against it this time. Kenyon McDuffie, though, has been a little bit more back and forth. When he was on the council, he voted for the curfew, but he was also very much like, listen, I like the idea of a curfew as a short-term tool, but we need to do other things like workforce development and behavioral health services and that sort of stuff. And that's kind of, that position is carried out over into his mayoral campaign. I talked to him about this 2 weeks ago, and he specifically said, listen, I want to extend the curfew because I think we need something to tide us over during the fall to do the other work that we have to do. So like if you want to get kids behavioral health services, you should, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of telling them not to be out at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday.
Is he saying these kids are doing this because they're mentally ill?
I don't know that mentally ill is exactly it, but just like, traumatized or anything. Again, I think that's the thing is like when they talk about this, they assume all the kids down here have deep-seated problems, which may very well be true for some of them. But you could also argue that not everybody who is down there doesn't have access to a job if they want to find one or get one, or doesn't have access to medical services if they need it. I mean, it's using a pretty broad brush to kind of paint some strokes there.
Martin, just really briefly, there were a couple of other pieces that the council, broke from the mayor on. What were those?
The big one, another issue that you guys have talked about plenty, is Pepco bills.
Pepco bills. They're high.
Pepco bills. They're high. We love our high electricity bills. So again, and it's funny because 2 months ago, the council probably, I don't think was talking at all about high electricity bills because it hadn't kind of yet filtered through to them. But now that it has, they're acting. And in some cases, you could say they're performatively acting. They're just trying to do something to say that they did something. And this time what they did is that they passed a bill authored by Janice Lewis-George, which is going to prohibit Pepco from cutting off electric service for unpaid bills for the next 90 days. So if you haven't paid your bill, Pepco cannot come after you and say, okay, well, we're going to cut off your service. And basically the argument she had was there's all this uncertainty right now about what the rates are because there's a legal fight over whether Pepco will keep its higher rates or they're going to have to go to some lower rates. So while that's being hashed out, she says it's unfair to expect people to keep paying these higher bills and then potentially have their service cut off because they can't afford the bills.
So what was Bowser's complaint against that?
Bowser's whole thing was like, listen, at the end of the day, whether they pay now or they pay in 3 months, they're going to have to pay. And at some point, and you could argue that if they don't pay now, in 3 months of not paying, they're just going to face a bigger bill down the road and they'll potentially get their service cut off then. So it doesn't help the situation fundamentally to say that you don't have to pay right now. And she's also arguing that if a lot of people aren't paying, it all gets picked up by the rest of the ratepayers who are paying. I mean, like eventually Pepco's not going to absorb that cost themselves. They're going to pass it along to the rest of the ratepayers. The council kind of tried to find a little bit of balance there, and they've said they limited it to this new prohibition on getting your service cut off to people who have a bill that's under $1,000. So that's their way of saying, if you're just the sort of person who never pays your electricity bill and you owe $10,000, like this is not for you. If you're the small homeowner who is suffering because of these high electricity bills and you're $600 overdue, this is for you. You'll have time to get a payment plan and you can get current without running the risk of your service being cut.
As a certified taco lover, I am very excited for this. District Bridge's Torre del Taco returns to DC for its 4th year. Here's how it works. From April 1st to April 30th, food lovers like me can earn points by exploring local taco and pupusa restaurants and supporting small businesses. Complete challenges in the free online game to score points and win the ultimate title of DC's Taconnosaur. And new this year, in-person taco crawls in Columbia Heights, Mount Pleasant, Cleveland Park, and 14th Street, where you get to vote on your favorite and be entered to win cool swag. Sign up for free and start earning points today at districtbridges.org/Tour del Taco.
Don't miss Folger's Theaters As You Like It, playing now through April 19th at the Folger Shakespeare Library. Envisioned by artistic director Karen Ann Daniels and directed by Timothy Douglas, this vibrant production is a love note to DC with the Forest of Arden evoking the vibes, culture, and character of some of the district's favorite spaces. Featuring choreography from Tony Thomas of Folger Theater's Helen Hayes Award-winning production of Metamorphoses, and original music by Grammy Award nominee Kokai, don't miss this take on Shakespeare's playful and musical comedy. Tickets start at $20 and can be purchased online at folger.edu or by phone at 202-544-7077. Get yours today. It's a couple blocks away on Pennsylvania Avenue, also news, which is that a federal judge has, for now, frozen construction on the new White House Ballroom. There was a lawsuit by some preservationists, and the judge ruled that Trump had way exceeded his authority by bulldozing the East Wing and putting it up. This obviously matters a lot for the White House, which is right now there's a very weird hole in the ground, and if they build it, it will be a major change to DC's cityscape. But I thought that and obviously Trump, who says the preservationists are lunatics, is gonna appeal. I thought the thing that was super interesting for like DC's, the rest of DC, is that Trump's argument for why he could knock this down and do this without permission is that he has, as the head of the executive branch, he has authority over it the same way they can knock down a ranger station at Yellowstone on national park land without having to get Congress's permission. The judge said, no, this is different. This is not a national park. It's different.
It is not a ranger station.
Not a ranger station. But, you can extend that out to other things in D.C. that are not on national parks, but are in the crosshairs, the Kennedy Center, the Smithsonian, places where Trump has claimed like really broad authority to be able to do as he pleases as the head of the executive branch. I don't know if this argument will stand up under appeal. I assume Trump will take it all the way to the Supreme Court, but it's one which has an import beyond just the White House.
Yeah, what's wild about it, and I don't think I'm being particularly innovative in saying this, is that I think he must have known deep down that this was potentially going to happen, that at some point he's going to knock down the East Wing, people are going to take notice, are going to get very upset, and then someone's going to file a lawsuit, and then eventually a judge will come along and say, well, maybe you shouldn't have done that.
That's the whole of his real estate history.
Yes.
Essentially. But he's knocked it down, right? Like this judge is going to have to figure out a way to proceed with this and say, you're not going to if I say that you shouldn't have knocked it down, the solution isn't for me to then say, well, you have to rebuild it as it was before, and then we'll start the process over. Like the thing is gone. The next iteration of the ballroom of the East Wing will be built. It's just a matter of when. So essentially, I think he got everything he wanted in terms of he knocked it down, and now he's just waiting for someone to say, all right, well, it's knocked down, so I guess you just have to go ahead and build the thing that you wanted to build anyhow.
So the Post had a report on yesterday, that they'd got some emails under public records laws, which showed the White House pushing the National Capital Planning Commission, which is ostensibly independent, to soften its language on like a public-facing FAQ about why it's reviewing the East Wing project, where it initially said like legally we're required to review federal projects, and they changed it to we're doing it in a spirit of cooperation because the Trump White House did not want to acknowledge that anybody else had a say-so over anything they would do with the White House. So this is going to be, again, it's going to affect the White House, which is pretty important to DC's landscape and tourism and whatever. But I think this is also a thing, if you care about all the controversies over buildings in DC, how far the courts allow this line of reasoning to go is going to be a big deal to you. Unfortunately, it's not going to help you if you want to stop him from doing stuff to like the golf course at Haynes Point or the golf course in Rock Creek Park, because those literally are on parklands and really kind of are like a ranger station. But for other projects.
Well, and it's bringing a little bit more scrutiny to the National Capital Planning Commission, which we know he appointed, some loyalists to that. But like seeing
not just
these
loyalists, but hugely important White House aides who
Exactly.
I would think have better things to do than to like sit around on a planning commission that when I went to a meeting a few months ago, like literally they were discussing whether to permit like a certain shape of like cell phone antenna that is placed on certain light fixtures on the mall that
Jesus.
it's very hard to even notice. So like that's the level of stuff this commission gets into. But he appointed, his top political aide, his cabinet secretary. These are like busy people.
Right, exactly. And I think this is like, bringing even more scrutiny to that commission. And also I'm reflecting on, I think it was maybe even the three of us. There was a group of us that had a conversation about the East Wing demolition, like back when it happened. And there was a sense, as we've talked about, from everyone that was like, he can just do that, And I feel like, we're finally seeing with these lawsuits, the rubber meet the road, as with so much of this administration, where it gets fought out in the courts, right? Like it took a long time to kind of get to this point, but this is the point at which I think people, like a lot of, DC residents were at initially, where it was like, oh, all of a sudden, like this thing is just gone. And like, where are the mechanisms? Where is any of the enforcement, or where, and so I think that's what we're finally at that moment right now in the courts.
Right. And I don't have a whole lot of faith in the higher ups in the court system, because the Supreme Court has given Trump pretty wide leeway when he claims to be the boss of the executive branch and therefore to be allowed to do something.
I mean, and the other kind of funny part about this is a small issue is that DC does have representation on, or membership on, the NCPC. I mean, Council Chairman Phil Mendelson is a member of the NCPC, and he has been for a while. I think it's pretty much written into law that it's just a position that is gifted to whoever's in that elected office.
I feel safer already.
Yeah, there you go. These are the sorts of meetings where 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't think Council Chairman Phil Mendelson would spend every single month like dedicating like on his schedule saying like, I have to make it to the NCPC meeting because we're going to be discussing those like cell phone towers. I really need to know that the shape is going to be right. But now he's one of these people. Now he's outvoted. But the point is, like, this is his moment to shine to a certain degree on this one particular issue. He has complained at some of these hearings about the size of this building, about how high it's going to be, about all these sorts of things that people are complaining about. But he actually has a seat and a place at the table to complain about it. Now, again, will it stop the thing? No. But I guess he gets to speak his piece about the White House Ballroom.
As much as I love springtime in DC, it also means allergy season. And as somebody with severe allergies, that means spring in DC can be rough. And did you know that if your windows are not properly installed or insulated, pollen can still make its way into your home, even if your windows are closed? So what better time to replace those busted old windows than Window Nation's The More You Buy, The More You Save sale going on now. You can save up to 50% off all the windows for your home. Window Nation's installation crews will finish the job in 1 day or less, so you can enjoy the rest of summer with minimal disruption. Best of all, they offer a lifetime warranty on all their windows, so you can relax knowing your home is protected far into the future. You better hurry because the sale ends soon. Schedule a fast, free consultation now at windownation.com.
Hey, one thing that Trump does not get a say-so over is the James Beard Awards yet. And there was actually kind of interesting news about DC chefs on that list. Who were they and what's the list?
Yeah, so the James Beard Awards are kind of like the Oscars of the food world. And there were a few DC restaurants on here. The actual winners will be announced in June, but the finalists, Best Chef, Mid-Atlantic, Suresh Sundas from Topori. Have either of you been to Topori?
I have not.
It's on H Street. It's really delicious. I love it. And I'm not trying to throw any shade here. The one thing I will say, I've had a couple of incredible meals there, but like extraordinarily attentive service to the point where sometimes you're like, okay, I don't actually like we don't need to like go into our family histories here at this meal. It's like kind of uncomfortable. But anyway, the food is amazing, so I do highly recommend it.
And that's for best chef. So like in theory that the service and how attentive it is not going to affect the voting one way or the other.
It's true. It's true. And again, no shade, except that was my experience. Best new restaurant, Maison Bar à Vin. Mike, you're taking French. How did I do?
Terribly.
Oh no! What?
Maison Bar à Vin.
Maison Bar à Vin. I've not been, but I hear it's wonderful. Outstanding professional in a beverage service, Brent Kroll, Maxwell Park. There's also a restaurant in Marshall, Virginia, Field and Maine for their wine program. But another one I really want to highlight is the pastry chef at Moon Rabbit, Susan Bay, who is nominated. This is one of our newsletter writer Kayla's favorite spots. She wrote about a dessert there as her favorite thing that she ate in 2025, the seaweed dessert from Moon Rabbit. Let's see. And I just love what she says. So I'm going to read a little bit of it. She says, as someone with a big sweet tooth, this dish convinced me that the best desserts should actually be a little savory. It's a pandan panna cotta base with a coconut granite and a salty seaweed on top. Anyway, Moon Rabbit, I've still not been. It's one of those places that my husband and I have a reservation, and then we realize we have a conflict, so we move the reservation. And then we realize we have a conflict, so we move the reservation. So we've been doing that for like 6 months now, so I still haven't been to Moon Rabbit, but I'm excited. And then the final shout out is for Chai Pani at Union Market. The restaurateurs Marwan and Molly Irani are nominees for Outstanding Restaurateur. And Chai Pani, I've been a few times, is excellent.
Wait, what's the difference between Outstanding Restaurateur and Outstanding Chef?
I think Restaurateur is like you also, like you're running the thing.
That's where they count in the very attentive service that Annie was complaining about.
Wait, and what's the difference between Outstanding Restaurateur and Outstanding Restaurant?
Restaurateur is like if you were going to give me Outstanding EP, but that wouldn't necessarily get conferred to CityCast DC.
I don't know. I wonder if this seems like how much does it cost to enter? Is there a business motivation here? Is there anything that you thought should have been on the list?
I don't know if there's anything that I thought should have been on the list. I mean, one of the darlings of the DC food world that wasn't is Albi. So that was maybe like a little bit of note to me. How about you, Martin?
Oh, you are asking the wrong person. Just to tell you where I am in terms of like generations of buzzy restaurants. Only recently did I take my wife for the first time. We went to Red Hen in Bloomingdale, the Italian place that's been around for like a decade or so. And, you know, the Bidens ate there and all sorts of things. We're like 10 years behind the curve on how buzzy it is.
And you're like, hey, I'm here.
2 months ago. So needless to say, I'm still emerging from like we've had kids phase and now we can start becoming part of like the social world again. So the list of restaurants I need to go to is long. It's probably going to start with some of the ones you've just mentioned. But yeah.
Nice. I do have a top tip, I think, for getting into some of these places. So I tried to make a reservation at Chai Pani with a few friends recently, and they were completely booked. But I walked in and said, hey, it's just 3 of us. We can, like, do you have any spots that are open right now? And we can, like, be out in an hour. You know, like, we don't need to, like, be staying and wining and dining. And a lot of times they are actually looking for that. So I've done this a couple of times now at different restaurants successfully where I say like, I promise that like, we'll keep it to, like, if you need this table by 8, like you will be getting it by 8. But then you get in at a really hard to get spot. You can oftentimes like walk in and it's sort of a win-win for all.
Except for slow eaters.
Except for slow eaters. Yeah. You gotta be like really on it, unfortunately. But anyway, top tip, I think.
That's a better approach than my traditional DC approaches where I walk in and say, do you know who I am? And if they say no, well, then I just immediately walk out. If they say yes, well, maybe I'll get a table, but I doubt
Wow, Martin. Wow.
Just kidding.
It comes out here.
It's true.
All right. I want to give a big thank you to our newest CityCast DC neighbors, Preeta P., Ryan K., and Michael M. Thank you for your support. Today, paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat. We're going to talk about data centers and drinking water. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, please become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $10 a month. Members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Annie Reese, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Elizabeth Kama. Newsletter editors Kayla Cote-Stemmerman, McKenna Harford, and Ash Durbin wrote our fabulous newsletter, CityCast DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from Philip Ayers, Rosedale, and Blue Lou from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell everyone about it at the next Teen Takeover? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.